So, like, the jump, when you decided to make the jump and just go independent from, getting out of academia, were you confident about it? Did you have any anxieties or like?
I was too dumb to have any anxiety. By that I meant I knew nothing about business. I figured it would be just like a job. Like, okay, I came to UF. It took me a few weeks to figure out where all of my classes were and to figure out what the grading curve should be that would be appropriate for this bunch of people. I figured it'd be kind of like that. And I forgot about the whole thing about trying to find customers. I figured you just put some signs up somewhere and people would come. No.
Yeah.
And it was horrible. And I was living off of my savings for quite a while.
Oh, yeah?
And, I did get, thankfully, UF asked me back to teach for the summer, so I did that quite gladly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but then it took me a long time to find my groove.
Really?
Yeah.
And what were some of your growing pains?
Not really knowing how to market myself. Not knowing, having a really good answer to the question, what do you do? Or even better, not even having a good answer to that question, why should I use you instead of a spell checker?
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is just the stuff that, I've learned a lot of stuff just from being in BNI, which is a good thing, which is how to have an easy answer on the tip of your tongue for what do you do and, what makes you special. Why should anybody invest in my services instead of going their own way? Or using a UF intern, which is the other objection I get a lot.
Yeah.
Said, well, you get what you pay for.
Yes.
I remember being an intern. I mean, I respect them. I was an intern myself, but that being said, I had a lot of supervision. Being 19 years old and working for a newspaper, I'd write something, hand it to the editor. I'd be so proud of myself, and they'd be like,
marked up. Yeah.
And unfortunately here, I see all too often, the interns write this stuff, and the editor just looks at it and goes, cool, and off it goes.
Really?
Well, yeah, because, they don't know any better very often. So.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, for instance, I've had, people come to me with, they've had advertorials and stuff written for them for various publications. I had one guy who's a personal friend of mine say, I got this advertorial written for me. It's so terrible, I can't believe it. How much would you charge to rewrite this thing?
Yeah.
And I know this guy's business like the back of my hand because I'm one of his more regular customers.
Oh, wow.
So I gave him a price, and I had the thing to him the next day. He added one line to it that he thought was appropriate, and we were good to go.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you come up with a way to how do you as far as charging for profit to make a good margin on your work? Like, how did you come up with that?
I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Well, what I have figured out is, and my general pricing policy, which pretty much everyone thinks is fair, is I estimate how much time it would take me to do the project. I come up, based on, I have kind of a base hourly rate.
Right.
And then I come up with an estimate based on that, and I sort of say, this is my flat rate for the project. Yeah. And if it goes, an hour or two over, no biggie. If it goes an hour or two under, no biggie. If there's massive mission creep, like the thing doubles in size, we're going to have to sit down and talk. But that's, generally, that's always worked out. People tend to be okay with that.
Is it, now do you have you learning that, that sweet spot for customers to be okay with it? Have you had to consider, okay, this is what people are kind of comfortable with in this area or this city or that city? That's
a good question. I do have had some clients from out of town that, I do charge a bit more for. Just because that's what they're used to paying.
That's what they're used to, yeah.
Yeah, and also, I don't want to be seen as the cheap vendor.
Why not?
Why not? Because, you get people who are not concerned with quality, for the most part. And also, I want people that I could have some sort of long-term working relationship with. Yeah. If they're just kind of, I get, of course, I try to have services at a bunch of different price points.
Right.
If somebody really wants to put a book out that they've written and they can't afford a full edit, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you kind of just a simple copy edit. It'll be like half the price, and at least then it won't have typos in it, and it'll, the punctuation and stuff won't be okay.
Yeah.
I won't guarantee you that you're going to win a Pulitzer for it or anything, but it'll look okay, and you'll be happy with it if you're happy with it now. And a lot of people are fine with that. Some people just want something proofread and up online. Some people want the whole thing written for them.
Right.
So I try to give people things. I try to offer a range of services that are accessible.
What is your favorite type of book to edit?
That's a good question. I am working
Or
on a...
do you have a favorite?
I mean, I like a lot of them. I love doing these memoirs for people.
Memoirs.
I'm working on a project now that's absolutely fabulous. It's totally the opposite of a memoir.
Oh, really?
It's totally nonfiction, and it's for I think the biggest client I've had so far, which is MIT, and I got this project through through an editing company I work for once in a while. I contract for once in a while, and they like my work enough that they recommended me for this project.
They're not based out of Gainesville, I'm guessing.
No, this is Massachusetts Institute of Technology,
and,
big geek school.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they have, these entrepreneurship boot camp programs that they run, and they wanted a book on those boot camps and how they run them, how they choose their faculty to, coaches to train people, the kind of people they look for. And it's a very idealistic, very energetic bunch of people who run this thing.
And the connection you made through MIT, was that up in Massachusetts as well?
Yes.
Okay.
It's interestingly
That's
enough,
cool.
this editing company run by a woman who was one of my English TAs in college.
Really?
So yeah, long story. She didn't know that when I
Wow.
applied for the job, but then I
But you
reminded
knew.
her later on.
Did you know right away when you
Yeah,
came across
she has
her
a very
name?
unusual name. So, when I saw it, I said,
yeah.
yeah, I remember her. She was my TA in like the English, the American 18th century novel or whatever it
At
was.
UCLA?
No, my undergraduate was at Stanford.
At Stanford,
yeah,
okay.
my graduate was at UCLA.
Wow.
She's been around a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been all over the place.
Girl.
Yeah, but anyhow, so yeah, but this book is fascinating. I'm basically writing it for them, and they sort of said the only way you can understand the true wonderfulness of our boot camps is to experience it themselves. So therefore, we're
Stop.
flying you out to one. So that's why I went to Japan a couple months ago.
Right,
They
I
flew me
remember
to
that.
Tokyo.
Remember that,
That's right,
yeah.
Yeah, so they flew me to Tokyo for a week to experience this insane program that they run. It's absolutely fabulous. You basically get a semester's worth of business training in a week.
Whoa, that seems intense.
Yes, it was intense.
Wow.
And I was basically getting paid to experience this thing. So
Right,
that was a
right.
real privilege.
Yes.
And
You got to eat good food because you're a foodie.
yes,
Right,
we
yes.
ate the most incredible food. They took us out for Kobe beef the first night. It was awesome. We had only like around a few tiny little pieces, but it was still pretty awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
But then but I just learned a lot, and they're just such idealistic people.
You just got to absorb all that
Yes.
knowledge.
So smart. And I'm writing this book for them, and I just took notes furiously the whole time I was there.
I can
Anytime
imagine.
I ran into someone interesting, I'd kind of drag them into a corner and interview
really?
them. And then now I'm just putting the thing together, and I'm talking to them every week about how we want to go forward. They're actually flying me out for another one of these things.
Oh, really? They
Yeah,
are?
next week I'm going up to Boston for another one.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
going for the whole week? Or
Yeah, the
that's
whole
it?
week,
Oh,
yeah.
wow. That's...
It should be fun.
Neat.
So
Oh.
so less jet lag this time.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank goodness. But anyhow, it should be,
And a little bit less humidity possibly, too.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Less of a language issue.
That's right. Yeah, true.
Yeah, except for
true.
that weird Boston accent. But anyhow, anyhow, it should be, it's been just a really good learning experience. And it's just been really fun trying to figure out a voice for this bunch of people who really are so excited and so proud of this program. They really want to share it and,
That's incredible.
spread the news about how neat it is to teach people in this particular way. And
This seems almost is it a cutting edge type of teaching method?
it is, in a way. I mean, it's not really techie. It's very surprisingly, everyone thinks of MIT as this big, hard, it's nothing but machines and stuff like that. But
Yes.
they're actually very, very people oriented. They're very into making the world a better place.
Oh wow!
At least the particular bunch of people I'm working with are.
Right.
So it's really, their coaching is very people oriented.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, they demand that their coaches be super, super good at what they do. We want people who know entrepreneurship, who are smart enough to be able to read up on any technology.
Right.
Like, if somebody, like, say, if one of the groups of students who want to do a project want to do something on blockchain or something, the coach has to be smart enough to go home that night, read up on it, and get
Right.
familiar enough on them to give them smart advice or that sort of thing. So
And who's the book? Who's the audience for the book?
it'll be for other universities and colleges and corporate trainers. They want other institutions to emulate this, and certainly other institutions have asked about emulating this.
Wow.
So they sort of said they've gotten enough requests. They thought there's a demand for this sort of thing.
Right,
so,
right.
in other words, the audience would be whoever plans educational programs here or UF
Yeah.
or wherever.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So will they be distributed to them, or is it going to be something like
It's going to be for
public
sale.
general? Oh, it's going to be for
Yeah.
sale.
For
Like,
sale.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just like a
In general.
textbook, basically.
oh, that's cool.
Neat.
That is very, very cool. Wow. And how long you been working on that project? And when is the end, you think? Like,
Good question. I think the project will be done when it's done. I think they're talking about the end of summer. We started in March, I think, early March. I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
it seems to be moving along pretty fast. Though.
Yeah, yeah. So it has been moving along pretty fast.
It felt like it seems like you've been working on it longer than that.
Well,
but
I don't know.
guess-
This year's been going by really, really quickly.
It
I mean, it
has.
seems like,
it's
it's been
already
insane. It's
June.
June, which is strange. Yeah, so it's been crazy. And
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow. So it's going to be you're coming to. Well, you really did a lot of work on it.
Yeah, it's been just a neat and very educational process for me too. You know,
Right.
just
Right.
really
Right. What's next for you on like this year coming up?
Oh,
and
goodness.
Your business and.
Well, I've got this. I have another client in who's in the pipeline who's written a book, and I'm helping her put that together. I have a few regular clients who have ongoing projects.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure quite what the future has to hold quite yet.
But you got some stuff on the horizon coming
Yeah,
up.
I do have some things coming up. I'm just looking to get more big projects.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to. I'm just really excited about having some more books out, like this MIT book. This is the sort of thing that I just love to have myself.
Right.
For one,
right, for sure.
and two, I'd love to be able to do more projects like this.
Yeah.
Like helping people, because I do. I taught for 10 years. I'm really passionate about education.
Yeah.
Helping people learn, helping people communicate better.
Now, in your independent journey, was it ever a time where you, like when times were really rough and the clients were, scarce, that you wanted to like throw in a towel or thought about just
Goodness, yes. I think the first 3 or 4 years, first couple of years were really hard. And I think it didn't help that I started doing this just at the height of the recession around 2010.
Yes.
And I had no idea where to go, and I was online at some of those horrible kind of like job things like Elance and stuff like that, where it's basically a race to the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah, where and then you write stuff for clients, and they're supposed to rate you and that sort of stuff. And I remember doing this project for a client. He gave me a really poor rating, which surprised me because I thought, I told him, why I was doing things a certain way. He wanted to do it one way. I said, this isn't what your audience wants. Your audience wants this instead. And I don't think he meant to be harsh.
Right.
I think he's one of these people who kind of is not into grade inflation, but unfortunately these rating things on these sites are kind of grade inflated.
Oh, snap. And it was up for a paid job?
Yeah. And so I kind of wrote a comment back, and I said, he actually said said some very nice things to me in his review.
Yeah.
But but I sort of said, well, here's, I'm glad you shared that concern. Here's why I did what I did. We'll talk again if you want to do something else, something like that. And a while later, I got this email from this woman who I didn't know, and she kind of introduced herself. She goes, "This is really unconventional, but I saw that review that you got from XYZ client."
Yeah.
She says, "I've also worked on him, and the guy is just a pain."
Okay, so you weren't. Your reaction was not. You weren't a solo one. Like,
But some people just give bad, like they don't. Some people are just negative, and so they just they don't necessarily go around and they would just give bad reviews.
No.
They don't give good reviews. They'd rather just give a bad review.
I'm just the opposite.
Review.
I'd rather, if I had a terrible experience with someone, I'd rather just sort of walk away and not go with the drama of a review.
Right.
I think, pretty much, yes, eventually quality speaks for itself. It could have been just me, I don't know. Maybe that person was having a bad day. Stuff happens.
Right.
Was there ever a time in between, like, writing gigs that you were, it's like, because I know I experienced it, like, oh boy, bills are due.
Yes.
But nothing is like.
It was hard. I mean, luckily, I had, I had some savings.
Yeah.
But I just remembered there were some times were really hard. Like my husband wasn't working either at the time.
Right.
He'd moved out. He'd gotten laid off from his job. This is, once again, right after the recession. They outsourced his entire department to China. So that was the end of his job. And so, you know, he came out to Gainesville with me. And I remembered one summer.
And there was no option in that, like, oh, y'all can move to China if he really wants a job.
No, they were only going to pay him, you know, American wages.
It was just.
And it was just awful. But, you know, so, you know, I just remembered it was summer. It was hot. And we couldn't run the air conditioner because we couldn't freaking afford it.
And this is Florida.
Where
you can be 104 degrees and 75%
in May.
humidity.
In June, yes, exactly. So, you know, I basically had fans. I would go to bed with like one of those ice pack things wrapped in a towel.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, so that's how bad it was.
Because the AC.
Yeah, because it was too expensive. It worked fine. I just couldn't afford it.
It's Florida. It runs.
Yeah.
Pretty much, we run our AC all year from what is this? Maybe on a normal like April
February
to like
or sometimes.
No, I don't run it that hot. I'm okay with it being a little bit balmy indoors. You know.
Yeah.
And besides, I don't like to waste electricity.
Yeah, most people, but some, but most people like will just run it. You know, run it. I mean, AC businesses are doing well in Florida. They should be.
I'm sure.
They should be. I mean, they got a long season of service.
Very long season in Florida.
It's not good business to get into if you're good at that
I
sort of
know,
thing. Yeah.
Goodness. So I mean, taking those things into consideration.
Yeah, and I just
probably eating. I mean, it changes the way you shop. When jobs aren't coming in, it changes the way you shop for food.
Oh, absolutely! It changes everything. It changes the way
you eat more canned food.
It changes. It just changes.
Well, I'm mostly vegetarian anyhow, so that keeps that down at least. So that's kind of a blessing. But you know, I'm also a decent enough cook that I could make cheap stuff decent. You know, so. Cooking was actually one of my few consolations.
Yeah.
Let's see what I could do with canned beans tonight.
That's the grind right there.
Yeah, but it's. I mean, I considered it a challenge. You know, I just didn't try to. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and panic, but you know, you wake up in the day and says, you know what, that's not really an option.
It truly isn't. It's only. It's like a brief moment. You can panic, but then, you know, if you're independent in a business owner, it's just like, I mean. You just got to go get it, because sometimes maybe you don't have nothing for a month, but you know, like, okay, maybe not this month, but in like week 5 or 6, I got something to do though. Like I can't. It's like I can't really throw in a towel. I just got to hustle now for something to see if I can get some.
Yeah, get some stuff on.
Some licks.
yeah. I mean, you could schedule stuff. Your stuff is very occasion driven, so you could do that.
Yeah. That's rough, but they got to come to you. You got to find them.
Yeah.
You got to find the clients.
Yeah.
It's like I have clients that are out there, but it's a lot of us. It's like, I feel like you're a little bit different, where the work is there, but the clients probably in your immediate area can be scarce. So
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I could do my work online. And some of my bigger clients are people that, you know, I think one of my longest, most enduring clients I've never actually met them in person before. We've only ever talked on the phone and on Skype. And emailed each other endlessly.
Really?
Yeah.
So they're in a completely different city. Are they in the same country?
Yeah, they're in Boca.
They're in Boca? Okay, okay.
Yeah, so they're not that far.
Yeah, not that far. But yeah.
Yeah, and then now we have these guys up in Boston, you know, and I have video chats with them every week. But, you know.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah, so it is kind of nice. So I have, you know, I'm kind of lucky in that I don't have to depend only on the local population. Yes. And although there is stuff here, but you have to work at it. And my line of work, it is hard because you're going against those free interns who want their 4 units of professional credit or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah, now you don't blame them, but you know.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I mean, they got to do what they have to do.
Well, exactly.
What's your best way of, like, I guess, like how you market? Like, I guess, how do you get your clients? Like, you know, what's the best way you know, best return?
What's the best funnel? Yeah.
The best funnel is just doing, just doing the best work I can, and they come back, and they send other people to you. When I'm trying to meet new people, you know, I always bring along copies of work that I've done. I've got sort of my bag full of books.
Yes.
Here's the thing I wrote for my dad. Here's the book I wrote for this other woman last year. Here's another one that I wrote. So, and so just showing them some of the stuff that I've done. letting them have time to read through it. And sometimes people do want writing samples, and I'll email those to them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So they can read through and kind of see.
Yeah.
What type of clients would they be looking for samples like that?
A lot of them would be. Well, for instance, these MIT guys, they wanted to see my writing samples before they hired me. And so they actually did a pretty deep dive. They went through onto my webpage and read all my blogs and stuff up there.
Oh, they did? They read all your blogs?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's they're all very business oriented, and they say, sure. So, stuff like that actually does count. It's a very long tail sort of thing, but, every trace you leave, makes a difference. You hope
blogs
you can make
are kind of becoming more popular, huh?
Yes and no. It's interesting in that actually videos are kind of more popular now.
Oh, okay.
But the videos and stuff like what you're doing here.
Right.
But blogs work for me because I write. That's what I do for a living. So that's my portfolio essentially.
Your blogs is your portfolio.
So
and it's not casual as far as like. There's a lot of people who can just do a blog casually because it's in that realm in a sense, but it's like, but yours have to be on point.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about my Instagram. Like I feel like anything showing my photos has to be like.
Yeah, you have to put your best stuff up there.
Yeah.
So I'm rather mindful about posting the blog that I've admittedly been not so good at posting recently, and I do blogs for other clients too. And when I do, I try and make it sound like them, that sort of thing.
Right. Oh, those business
blogs.
Related blogs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so that's always fun too, because you get to learn about these other businesses and all the other ways that people make a living. Yeah. So that's kind of fun.
What about like a mompreneur kind of come to you to help them out with their blog to clean it up?
I've never had that happen. Okay. I mean, most of those people tend to be pretty frugal, and they're very careful about what they want to invest in. So I haven't been getting too many of those. I mean, a few of them have approached me, but it didn't prove to be a sustainable option for them.
Right.
And that's okay. I'd rather go for people who are, who are a little bit more stable, who might a little bit more established, who are trying to push themselves to the higher level.
Yes. Who they need certain products produced and stuff like that. They need to get their material out there in written form on a regular basis because they value it. You want to just find those companies that value that stuff. They value their company really.
Oh yeah, I mean, for sure.
Because I'm thinking like if you don't value your company, why would Felicia want to work with them? Yeah. You got to value your own company first.
Sure, yeah. So I do like to work with businesses that are kind of, that are proud of what they do.
That's cool. How can people find you?
Well, you could find me at my website, felicialeewrites.com. It's pretty easy to figure out.
Felicia, the way it's spelled.
Yes.
Normally.
Yeah, first name, last name, Writes.
L-E-E.
Yes. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way to find me. I'm on LinkedIn.
How do you feel about LinkedIn?
I like LinkedIn.
I like it too. I think it's changing.
Well, I think I like it because there's so much less drama than Facebook.
Yeah.
So much less dumb stuff. I mean, a lot of it is, obviously self-promotional, but it has to be. But it's a good way to keep in touch with people you wouldn't normally keep in touch with. And seriously, I do get hits. People do look at my, come in, and I do kind of show up in searches once in a while. So if you keep it up to date, I don't post stuff very often. But, people will, if you kind of have a decent profile. Yeah. If you do it in a fairly coherent way, if you pretty comprehensive about how you describe what you do. Right.
Have you gotten gigs off of LinkedIn?
I've gotten a few potential. Yeah, I think I've gotten a few potential gigs.
Oh, some things in the works.
Yeah, something. Okay. I mean, nothing that's in the works right now, but people have approached me before, and for whatever reason, it didn't quite work out. But they're things that, people do find me on LinkedIn. That's cool. And I think it's also a good place to, establish some credibility, you know, because I have a lot of recommendations and stuff there from people. And
How do you feel about being like the face of your own brand and stuff like that? I wanted to ask, like, are you comfortable with it at this point?
I am not. Yes and no. I'm actually sort of in the midst of a rebrand in a way. I'm not going to go into the details until it's ready. Yeah. But I've sort of made peace with it. Because I realized that the business right now is me, and I've been thinking about, I've been doing all this stuff with all these entrepreneurship groups. I do a lot of stuff with, I have been doing a lot of networking with the startup community here in Gainesville. Not so much recently, but in the past. Yeah. And they're always talking about building and scaling and stuff like that. Yeah. But I said, well, basically, I am my brand right now.
Yes.
And perhaps my business model would be more of a craftsperson than, you know, a big scalable factory sort of thing. Maybe that'll work for me. But I mean, I do see, you know, in the future, probably not too far off, having people, you know, on the side who will help me with various things. Maybe, you know, having somebody to do some of the lower proofreading for me. I actually volunteered my husband to help out with the book cover for my most recent client.
Yeah.
And he was happy to do that.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
And, you know, so, you know, that could be a possibility too.
Yeah.
You know, he's, you know, just bringing in people with certain relevant skills to help out with projects.
Right. So that's growth and adjusting.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, you know, another way to go. And also it's a way of, you know, establishing me as, you know, not just the one man, one woman fix it thing, but as actually a service.
Yes. And knowing that, because I think that
as an authority, really.
Right. And you can be able to present that to your clients and customers, like, you know what, we can provide this for you. You know, I got back up.
I like that.
I do have a network of people that I could, you know, do, like I know a good photographer, for instance.
Yes.
I like
that. I know someone who could look after your mom while you're here talking to me.
That's exactly. Yes. That's right.
Yeah, make sure she doesn't burn the house down.
Yeah.
We'll sneak out for
tequila
runs, yeah.
Yeah, that stash of olives by the bed.
Yes. Good stuff. Well, Felicia, we want to thank you for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
This was I learned a lot. I mean, I've known you for years, and I learned so much more. What a life. That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure talking to you guys.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. This was another Coffees and Conversation.
And keeping it real.
Yes.
Yep. Keep it real.
Yeah.